about Mother Teresa.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if you're going to have a book about the Reverend Billy Graham, and if so, what would it be called?
I'll have to think. We are told that the Reverend's career is coming peacefully to a close, and I certainly hope that that's true. I regard him as a. I have to think of a title, and I will. I will by the time he croaks. An interesting book to read, by the way, on him is written by a man, oddly enough, called Templeton, Richard's favourite surname, who was the Billy Graham of Canada for a long, long time, was very close to Graham himself, and they would go on campus crusades for Christ together and so on, until Templeton realized that there was nothing to it, and said to Billy Graham, you don't believe this either, do you really? I mean, come on, what are the chances? And so now it's too late to change now. It's a living. You know, he has a very devastating quote, his last chat with Billy Graham. Good book, it's called Farewell to God. Jim Templeton, I think, was his name. Charles, excuse me. Charles Templeton. Excellent book. So there's that, which is, again, would make only the suggestion that Graham was another, or is just another figure from the Pardoner's Tale, just another mendicant and fraud. But I think it's much worse than that. I think that the evidence is that Billy Graham suffers from a very horrible disease, a version of paranoia that's known colloquially as anti-Semitism. It's impossible to be mentally or morally healthy if you suffer from this disorder. All the evidence of the Nixon tapes that we have, and it's in very great detail now and verbatim, is that he and Billy Graham, when they got together, liked most of all to talk about that and to jeer and taunt. He was sick with this conspiratorial, infantile nonsense, and that's not pardonable. So one will have to be, as well as quite satirical about him, I think very severe. And thus I don't feel any sense of embarrassment or apology in saying that his death would not in the least bit diminish our species. And that those who've fallen for him are very, very, very sadly misled.
Since the Iraqi war came up, I can't help asking you what your rationale is for the fact we all agree that Islam is a very dangerous religion, that it's going to take some time to make inroads on it. I can't understand why you would defend us going into Iraq rather than Iran, and why you would think that we have any hope in a confrontation in winning without some really horrendous results.
Let me see if I understand you, or rather let me be sure if I understand you correctly. Are you in favor of a confrontation with the Iranian theocracy?
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. I thought not. You're just using it again as a means of ridiculing the confrontation with Iraq. It's not, you're saying we went into the wrong country, so you should go neither. Well, I've met people like you before. It's easy to read.
That was not religious, controlled by a religious figure, and create chaos. Yeah. Rather than going into one that does have a religious figure, I mean, I'm not for either one, but...
No, okay. I know where you're coming from, as they say. An easy way to tell that someone doesn't know anything about Iraq at all is if they'll say one of two things about Saddam Hussein. One, well, okay, he was a bad guy. Then you know right away they don't know anything about him. No one who knew anything about the Saddam Hussein regime would content themselves with saying that. And second, to say he was a secularist. I can tell right away. People have no idea what they're talking about when they say that. Saddam Hussein's campaign of genocide in Kurdistan was called the Anfal campaign, after a surah of the Quran about the spoils that you may take from the victim, the devastation that you may inflict on them. It was Saddam Hussein who, sensitive to the charge from Iran that he was a heretic or an unbeliever, put Allahu Akbar on the Iraqi flag. That was 15 years ago. Who forced all members of the Ba'ath Party in the last 10 years to undergo compulsory religious education, who pumped out on radio and TV Baghdad and throughout his embassies around the world, and as you all saw it, a constant stream of jihadist propaganda, who undermined the secular PLO by paying for the suicide bombers of Hamas and Islamic Jihad and paying a bounty for every suicide bomber, which we found confirmed in the Iraqi bank records, was the patron of jihadism in the region. It was well beyond time that he was removed from office in Iraq, and I think the Senate did a good thing in 1998, and the House, on the initiative of President Clinton and Vice President Gore, to pass the Iraq Liberation Act, saying that year that it shall be, that I am answering your question, sir. Well, wait, I'm denying the assumption of your question that Saddam Hussein was secular, and I'm coming to Iran in a second.
Thank you.
He was quite right for the Senate to pass, but without a dissenting vote, by the way, the Iraq Liberation Act, long before 9/11, and said it shall be the policy of the United States to remove Saddam Hussein from power. Now, it seems to me, to come to Iran, that the Iranian theocracy is bent on a course of confrontation with us. It's resisted enormous bribes and inducements from the European Union, from the United States, and from the UN to allow us to be certain that its nuclear program is not directed at the acquisition of thermonuclear weaponry. There's a very suspicious course of conduct, and all the evidence for its cheating on this comes not from the CIA, but from the International Atomic Energy Authority, from the European Union, and from others. We have them cold on this point. Second, they are conducting a campaign of murder and assassination in order to help Syria gain control of Lebanon. No journalist or politician elected in Lebanon can hope to turn on their car in the morning if they're opposed to Syrian occupation and the Iranian backing of that, without the risk of murder. They're the patrons of Hezbollah. Their agents have been found trying to kill a novelist in London, blowing up a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires, murdering a Canadian journalist of Iranian extraction, and seeking for confrontation also in Iraq and Afghanistan. It seems that they think they can fight and win a confrontation with secular civilization that they so much despise. And it seems that the hubris that underlies this ridiculous campaign, after all, thanks to theocracy, Iran is a country where nothing works except the secret police and the nuclear reactors. Nothing works. The country is bankrupt. It exports just what it did at the time of the theocratic revolution, pistachio nuts and rugs, while a secular country like Turkey is practically a member of the European Union and has no oil. How do they think they can do this? Because they think the 12th Imam is coming back, because they too have a Messiah, because they too have an apocalyptic sense of the future. And pretty soon, a messianic regime is going to get hold of an apocalyptic weapon, the very moment we've all been dreading all our lives that this would happen. A regime that doesn't understand deterrence, that doesn't understand self-preservation, that has a religious worldview, will also have apocalyptic weaponry. Well, are you prepared to wait and see this happen? Or do you think that it would be worth fighting to stop that eventuality? I have no doubt. Anyone who wanted to guess my opinion would be insulting me.
I live to fight people like that. And I think the United States military has no higher calling than to destroy the regimes and disperse the armies of governments that threaten us in that way. And so I hope very much that though you used Iran
purely as a means of ridiculing the attempt to liberate Iran, that you will find that the confrontation is both inescapable and just.
This is the last question, Christopher, and I see that you're anxious to have a cigarette.
No, that's not all I want. Only two of the things that I want could I do at this podium.
You will be in the patio doing a book signing along with Ayan and Hushi Ali, and we're going to make an easy exit for you both through the kitchen so that you don't have to fight the crowd, and we will get you safely to your destination. And this is the last question of the afternoon.
Mr. Hitchens, my question is also related to the last question of Iraq, as I, like you, like confrontation and divisiveness more than homogeneity, more exciting. According to some estimates, 500,000 people have died in Iraq, and there are some